Welcome everybody. This is Derek Klimkowski with Eyeota. I lead the sales team for our audience technology company. Lucky enough for us today, we have Ye Wang, who's joining us from TBWA, an Omnicom company, and she's here to talk to us a little bit about the dynamics of communication during COVID-19 for her internal teams, but then also some of the communication channels and topics that are happening across clients and some of the changes that are necessary with the market. So welcome, Ye. Thanks so much for joining us. I'll give you a chance to say hello and tell us a little bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis, and then we can kind of jump into the interview questions.
Great. Hi, Derek. Happy to be here. I am a Global Data Strategy Director at TBWA Worldwide for one of their global clients. So we're looking forward to hearing what questions you may have for me and have a lively discussion based on it.
Definitely. Well, thanks again, Ye. So, I think today we really, as mentioned, want to talk a little bit about the internal communications across the team and the client communications. First off, we'll start with internally. Maybe you could tell us a little bit. We talked earlier in the week. Things are changing. Obviously, communication channels need to change within organizations. How is TBWA, kind of handling it across your peers, and what is leadership kind of pushing down to the group in terms of like communication expectations internally?
So leadership has been great with communication at the TBWA agency level. We have been having regular town halls. Leadership is keeping us abreast of what are the internal developments in terms of the various clients we are working with. And with the particular client account that I am on, we also have a internal regroup with the more senior level people on a global scale to talk about how COVID-19 has been impacting how we are approaching our media buying across all markets around the world.
Great. Thank you for sharing. And do you feel like, with those statements, do you feel like, things have drastically changed in your communication levels internally? Like, do you find yourself pushing and reaching out to more teams to like set up, webinars and kind of the conference calls to keep this level of communication? Like, I guess my question is, how has it changed from maybe a month ago to maybe, let's call it, the last 2 weeks?
There definitely has been a shift in communication, and the shift in communication surrounding what is going on with the pandemic is less driven by me, is more at the very senior level, would be the president or the C-suite. They're super proactive within TBWA and setting up these weekly touch bases, as I mentioned before, with my particular client team on a global scale to understand how this is impacting all the markets across the globe. And then internally at the agency C-suite, they are also keeping the employees abreast of the development. We also have our sister agencies that we work very closely with within Omnicom, and they too have created a newsletter communication and developed a kind of knowledge-based training for the rest of us, for us to have a better understanding of how we can move forward and tackling our work with our clients within our industry, considering everything that is going on.
Yeah. Excellent. And like, obviously there's the fair balance of like, being sensitive towards, what's happening in the market. People have personal things that, everybody's not aware of. There's business things that are going on. I guess, trying to understand, the client, communication, like, are there certain topics in terms of education that you guys have shifted to meet the needs of the client? What is the client asking of you these days?
Right. From what I can gather in speaking on the global scale, the client really is just shifting their media budget in a way that it makes sense for them to spend, consider everything that's happening in terms of how consumers are the consumption of media overall by the consumers, right? And on top of that, clients that we work with within our agency, and you would know this well too, they're always very budget conscious in the way of how things are allocated and how that would translate to success or them meeting their goals. So those conversations are happening. Working on a client that is on a global scale, we work very closely with our regional and market teams. They do have the local clients there that they work with as well. So each of of course, the requirements for each of the various markets will be different. As this pandemic is occurring, it's affecting different regions in different ways, right? Asia saw COVID-19 have an impact on their economy first, and then Europe, and then US. So we're all dealing with it at different stages of time and in different ways. But really, I think what I've seen across the board, and I really love too, is how companies are really quickly adjusting and developing a plan to address what is going on. So it's no longer about, hey, consumers come and buy or purchase our product or service, but it's more like, this is how we're looking to help, or hey, we know this is going on. The best thing you can do is stay at home, because staying at home is the biggest message that government officials across the board is recommending.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's all great stuff. And having an understanding of your role as a global contributor and leader, I think you're seeing, as you had mentioned, some of the shifts in timing. Obviously, the peaks have not hit in the US. We're trying to figure out if that's happening, but each market has a different level of, I guess, a rebound, so to say. So it's great to see that, you guys are having these conversations, and each conversation is relatively different to each market. I think, one of the things I did want to ask is, I know that the planning and the strategy part of the business, usually takes, anywhere from 3 to 6 months, with creative involved, to really put out these messages, in a fashion that you have historically. How are you guys going about turning around messages faster and making these shifts across channels? Is it just the level of, approvals are happening faster, or people are thinking faster and moving faster? Maybe you can comment a little bit to the timing changes that are necessary with COVID-19.
I would say all of the above. Answer is D, right? All of the above.
Yeah.
But that is always the nature of our industry working in advertising. We do, like you mentioned, sometimes have that longer planning stages, especially if we're planning for the new calendar or fiscal year. But the team that I work with and the team that I've worked with before within the ad industry, they're all really, really great at turning around things in a short period of time, right? So when this happened, across the board, the feedback we got was, how do we make sure that the commercials that we're running, the commercials that we develop, has been updated to address what is going on, right? Because if you're working for a client where you're encouraging them to go out and buy your product or service, right? This is no longer the recommended action across the board that we as citizens should be taking. The message is we should stay at home. So when that happened, our internal team, our creative team, our media team, we quickly went to work and we update our creative and really work on fight back plans to address this. One of the strengths of the current client team that I work on is that the creative team and the media team sits in the same building, so it makes the communication much easier, and it actually shortens the turnaround time that we would have to work with to make that a possibility.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and obviously, in this situation and time where time is essential, and decisions need to be made a lot quicker. It sounds like the setup that you have in place with creative and media, sitting under the same roof allows for that fluidity and kind of quickness in changing messaging. So great to hear that you guys are looking at the business from a global sense. It sounds like what you've shared today is very encouraging in terms of communication internally, externally with your advertisers. And what we'd like to do is really thank you for joining us today. I think there were some great points that the market can grab onto and really utilize in terms of their discussions moving forward. And what we'd like to do is potentially highlight this somewhere down the road, because the things will be changing, and what we know as true today may not be true in 2 or 3 weeks from now. So we're all adjusting, and want to thank Ye for taking some time out of her day to sit down with Eyeota and give her an opportunity for any last thoughts here. But once again, thanks, Ye.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Always a pleasure to chat with you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you very much, Ye. Have a wonderful day.